Hi, my name's Leighton Jin. I'm the Director of Development for the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival, also known as AmDocs, which is March 21st to 25th in Palm Springs, California. We have a lot of great movies, and we have another one from Edgar Lowe. I just blanked the name of your film. I'm sorry.
The Lastmaker.
The Lastmaker. I'm so sorry. We were talking earlier off camera about the whole process. But Edgar, can you talk to me about the Last Maker and it's about shoes. Can you describe that and give us some background on that?
Yeah, sure. Just quickly, thank you for having me and allowing me to have this sort of interview conversation.
Well, we're happy to have
Um,
you and we're excited for your film being our festival.
Thank you. So the Last Maker is about my dad, who is actually the last independent last maker in the UK. So there's an organization here called the Heritage Craft Association, which lists a bunch of crafts from endangered to viable. My dad is of, I believe, 148 crafts that are currently endangered in the UK, which means that they don't have enough apprentices coming through or enough people working at the moment to make them profitable or viable, and in the next couple of years will no longer exist. Um, so last making as a craft, sort of an art form, is making the 3D version of a shoe that someone's shoes will be made on. My dad makes his bespoke, so he measures people's feet and makes them to match their feet perfectly. And a lot of the art of the craft actually comes from making them look like a pair, because most people's feet are not a pair in any way, shape, or form, whether that's shoe size or like a width of a foot. So he sort of you have to sort of make them look identical. So when a shoe is made, one doesn't look completely different. And my dad's been doing it since he was about 18, so nearly 40 years.
Wow. When you were mentioning that, I kind of keep thinking about people putting those inserts in their shoes because they develop certain structural problems because
Yeah.
of the unevenness. How much do these shoes that he makes, how much does that minimize that? Is that, or does it? Or I mean, it seems like it's
Yeah.
a healthy way to have shoes.
Yeah. So ideally, it would minimize it sort of completely, because they're sort of, what he does is make them to your feet. So, like myself, I have a raised instep,
Mhm.
and which is sort of, yeah, the bone at the sort of the top of your foot, um, which a lot of shoes are not made for. So if I buy a pair of shoes sort of off of the shelf, or trainers, usually they're for narrow feet, and that's just sort of the standard because that's sort of the average foot. So yeah, it's to sort of mitigate it entirely, and it's for people who have orthopedic needs, like especially flat arch. It's helpful for, and a lot of transgender people as well. Sometimes go to have custom shoes because if a man is transitioning into a woman, there's not uh, a great selection of high heels, for example, that would fit what is a male foot.
Right. That's that's really amazing. I never really kind of thought about that till he brought that up. I was like, because I actually drove by a shoe place and they were talking about creating those shoes and they have all these things to kind of balance it out. Um, when did you decide that you wanted to make this into a film?
So
Because
this
obviously
is
you've been
my
aware of it for a long time. Sorry to interrupt
Yeah,
you.
so no, that's okay. So this is actually my graduate film, which started as sort of more of a narrative, yeah, a narrative fictional piece based on someone in the town I live in who was a shoemaker who had sort of mystical powers, and sort of I was trying to sort of touch on the same ideas of a dying craft, which was becoming harder to do over sort of 10-15 minutes. And then I decided to do my dissertation on sort of documentaries and sort of the perception and the creation of truth within them. And through that process, and realized that the film I initially wanted to make was sort of too big or too complex, I decided to just sort of hone it in into sort of something personal and get straight to the point and try and make the film. And yeah, like you said, I've been aware of this my entire life. And my entire life, people have always questioned what my dad does, what he, what is the craft, and it's some people understand it quite quickly, others don't because it's quite a visual thing. I think people need to sort of see to fully grasp. Um, and so yeah, and then in making this film, sort of, I knew the space, I knew the workshop and everything, so it was actually quite an easy thing to sort of create once it was in progress.
On a personal level, what was it like to go through and make this documentary with your dad? 'Cause, I mean, it sounds like it was also a kind of a special bonding experience for you,
Yeah.
or it could have been.
Yeah, I think, well, my dad teaches courses. So a few years ago, I joined one of those. And they're mainly shoemakers who go on these courses to learn how to adapt the loss that they get to better suit their clients and stuff. So I did that, and it was sort of, it's always different knowing about something and being a part of it, I think. So to be able to make my own pair of lasts, which I don't have on hand, otherwise I should have got them out to show. Um, but to show that, and then yeah, to make this film, it's sort of, although knowing it, the day to day life and running is still something I don't think I've ever seen fully. Because obviously in school or work, it's, the time isn't there to sit and watch him sort of do
Right.
it. So I think, yeah, for that it was quite a thing. And everyone else as well on this shoot sort of taking an interest and sort of wanting to learn kind of about what it is, I think is, yeah, sort of, it's kind of what this whole film is sort of trying to be, is to try and get people a bit more interested in to see crafts. And yeah, so yeah, I think it was sort of very personal to sort of be able to make this for him, because in a couple of years as well he will be retiring, so it's almost a moment in history, if you like.
Was that was there any pressure on you to join the family business, or did he just kind of keep that all separate from you?
He kept it all sort of separate, because I think it's, as sort of the film slowly starts to show and explore it, sort of, it is dying, and it is
Mhm.
unfortunately not something, it's something that people will slowly stop needing more and more, and will become for a smaller sort of target audience, I guess. And so I think there was never a push to do it. Um,
Right.
so yeah, that's not to say that, maybe he'll be happy if I did one day just turn around and want to, but yeah.
That's kind of funny. I was a journalist, and the way you described that, I always tell people, well, if you get journalism, it's sadly it's kind of disappearing on a lot of
Mm.
aspects. But, I hope it kind of evolves, and a lot of the journalists become documentary filmmakers like yourself, because I think it's a great platform to talk about truth. Um, what has your dad seen the film, and what does he think of it so far?
Yeah, yeah, I don't think he saw the most recent version. He saw the version before the score was made,
And
which is done. So yeah, he loved it, and I think, yeah, he really enjoyed sort of just sort of seeing this shown and told, which no one's ever reached out to him to sort of do before. Not that I know of, anyway. And yeah, he managed to show it sort of at a private conference in Hamburg. They have like a shoemakers conference, and yeah, they loved it there as well. They loved the British humor in it. That was their feedback.
well, I love British humor as well, so that's another selling point for this. Out of curiosity, with his processes, is it completely eliminated from a major shoe company that makes it? I mean, I was a sports writer, so I always think of Nike or one of those. It seems like they could adopt a lot of the skills and craftsmanship for their shoes, because I've heard stuff that certain shoes that come out, people have injuries, and it's not suitable for
Yeah.
certain athletes, and it just seems like what your dad does is not only craft these shoes, but it's also there's a science to it that creates something a little bit more, I guess, healthy or safer
Mm.
for different people. Can you talk about that maybe?
Yeah, so I don't know specifically sort of with Nike or any of the other sports brands and what they do. I have a feeling that the professional athletes have bespoke shoes made that look like they're off the shelf ones. But that's just a feeling I have. I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, I think the issue is with the mass manufactured um, sort of products, they just can't. It's difficult to cater for every foot type because some are quite long but quite narrow, and then vice versa. There's some can be quite short and quite wide.
Mhm.
Um, that unfortunately, on a business sense, it doesn't make sense for them if they want to make as much money as possible. Um, but yeah, so he doesn't really get involved with mass manufacturing.
Yeah.
He mostly deals with sort of high end bespoke clients. And I said like orthopedic before. So if someone has specifically bad uh, foot like feet conditions, sort of he can help rectify that. But then there's an issue with um, not everyone. There's not really a standardized process of measuring
Mhm.
that. Um, so there's been times when he's given measurements from someone else to make it last, and it's been done with a Sharpie, so you just don't know where the measurements have been taken from, sort of on the outline. So yeah, sometimes they just don't work anyway. So there's still some issues with people who do measuring, especially in like healthcare. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know how mass manufacturing would be able to adopt such a bespoke
Right.
system.
Well,
I think
well,
is
I mean, us talking about this, it kind of struck something else with my mind because there's a lot of athletes, particularly in basketball, they're 7 footers, and once they get that height, sometimes through a growth spurt, so their feet can be vulnerable. And there's a lot of talented people who have recurring foot injuries that ended careers. So I'm just thinking if I'm an agent, I'd be looking up to your dad and say, what can you do for my
yeah.
client to make sure? Because here's a guy who can make millions, maybe even billions in an athletic career in basketball with shoe contracts and all that stuff. And some of them get derailed before they get started. So that's why I
Mm,
was thinking about you. I mean, there's certain athletes I think about right off the bat, just talking to you about this. Because,
mm.
these guys are
Yeah,
really, really valuable in their industries within themselves.
yeah. To be fair, I've not actually thought about the sports application of it. But yeah, like I said, I don't know whether when you get onto like a contract on the sort of the big NBA teams that they do supply you with that footwear. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I'm not too sure. It's a new thought for me.
Yeah, I was a sports writer, so I just kind of followed that. And like, there's a couple terrific basketball players in college. Once they got to the pros, the injuries caught up to them, and they're generally
Mm.
7 footers. The most famous one is a guy named Bill Walton, who had a chance to be one of the greatest ever. He just had a lot of injuries that derailed his career, and it was still a Hall of Fame career. So that just crossed my mind. And so your dad does all kinds of shoes, men, women, high heels, dress shoes. Is that correct?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, everything. Because yeah, the last um, once it's done, the shoes can be sort of made to them. Obviously, they're made for a specific toe shape
Hmm.
and stuff. But yeah, you could. It's not. It's a one-time use. You can use these over and over again until basically you can't anymore. So yeah, everything.
Wow, that's awesome. Because he has mentioned when he mentioned transgender people, I was thinking about the drag queens. We have a lot of drag queen brunches out
Mm.
here in Palm Springs. Um, and is this your first documentary, or
Yeah. I mean, I made a very short for top 26. I interviewed some school children for a short thing, but that was yeah. This was sort of the first serious sort of trying to tell something a bit more personal and a bit more my view of this situation.
what do you think you learned about your dad going through this process that maybe you didn't know?
Ooh. Uh, I think I don't actually know.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, 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 that's
Because
okay.
yeah, we shot it on we started shooting on the 21st of March, so it's a perfect year from um but yeah, no, I think just how much detail and how much time you sort of actually have to take, and actually just sort of how how I don't know, mathematical it is as well. Because there's so many different measurements, and they all sort of have to sort of coincide with each other, and for him to be able to do that. And yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of
Yeah.
admiration.
And then, did your dad make your shoes growing up? I know you mentioned he had a instep. Did he always make them, or did you go get, we call them sneakers. I think you guys call them trainers across the
Yeah,
pond, correct?
yeah, mostly trainers. I do have a pair of shoes that were off a last based on me, just because I just couldn't find dress shoes. So I have one of those. But yeah, mostly I find trainers that fit because I have wide feet as well that fit, and I just buy the same. If they break, I just buy them again. Yeah,
Easiest way to do it.
yeah.
Uh, I think that's going to do it for right now. Is there anything else I might have missed that you want to share about the film?
Um, I hope people will look more into sort of crafts and people around them. I know they're more expensive, and I know you know it's difficult maybe to afford that, especially in today's climate. But just to know they're there, I think, and to sort of try because they're dying industries. And I think it's very important that they have a voice as well because they're sort of the last culturally heritage part of, especially the UK. It was a foundation of sort of commerce in this country, and it's sort of disappearing. So I think yeah.
And now, out of curiosity, you have that list of endangered crafts. Are you? Do you think you'll do other crafts for future projects, or
So
is it too soon yet?
I actually have a shoot on the 18th of March for a coppersmith. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, I'm in. I am going to try and make more of them and try and build a bit more awareness. So yeah, it's on the books.
I'm kind of fascinated just talking to you, just because these are just certain crafts maybe sometimes we forget or take for granted, and sometimes mass production doesn't isn't always the best way
Mm,
for certain people. So I'm really fascinated by what your dad does, and I'm fascinated what you've done with this film, and I can't wait to see it at the film festival. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I really
thank you.
appreciate it. Just a reminder for everyone, the AmDocs is March 21st to 25th at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. Get your tickets because they're going quick. And remember, opening night is Sean Penn. So I'm not quite sure if we're sold out yet. We're pretty close. So if you really want to do it now. And hopefully we can get you in. Edgar, thank you so much. And tell your father, Stephen, thank you so much for sharing his craft in this film. And again, we're looking forward to it. Thank you very
Yeah, we'll
much.
do. Thank you.